My name is Elaine, I'm 33, I manage client strategy at a mid-size firm that likes balloon arches and open bars a little too much. I've been married for 5 years to a good man named Daniel, the kind who remembers to put the soft towels in the dryer 5 minutes before I wake up so they're warm. That should tell you enough about what I'm about to confess, and why it hurts to say it out loud. The company party was already loud when we arrived, glasses clinking, a DJ trying to pretend it was a gala, not a rented ballroom with cold canapes. I was half watching the slides looping on the big screen, wins, new hires, a surprise partnership announcement teased in glowing letters, when the room shifted. It's strange how sound can warp around a moment. I swear the beat fell through the floor when I saw him. My ex Nathan. He was walking in with the partners, crisp navy suit, a tie I'd given him years ago, the same ridiculous dimple when he smiled at a joke that probably wasn't funny. The slide behind them changed and there it was, welcoming our new partner. His name. His name in my room. I felt my throat tighten as Daniel squeezed my hand, warm and steady. You okay? He asked, gentle, eyes scanning my face for the answer I didn't want him to find. I said something about the shrimp being spicy and he laughed, because he trusts me, and because I have never given him a reason not to. Not until this night. Nathan made the rounds like he belonged to all of us and none of us, the easy charm he wears like cologne. When he reached our circle I tasted metal, that old fight or flight. Elaine, he said, as if the name were something you say to test the weight of it. Daniel stuck out his hand first, the decent person he is. I've heard great things, Daniel said. Nathan's eyes flicked to mine, just long enough to ignite a fuse I thought I'd drowned years ago. Likewise, Nathan said, and then to me, softer, hi. I managed a professional nod. I'm good at those. He moved on. The room exhaled. I didn't. Time passes differently in rooms where your history is pretending it's your future. I smiled, I applauded, I drank what I told myself was half a glass of champagne, until it wasn't. Daniel left early, his mother had an early appointment and he wanted to drop off her medication. He kissed my temple and asked if I'd Uber home. Don't stay too late, he said, the kind of sentence that means nothing until it means everything. I nodded and said I'd be right behind him. It was later by then, after the speeches, after the awkward dancing, after the small talk that drains your bones. I told myself I'd do one last lap and go find my coat, because that's what responsible, married, 33-year-old me does. The conference floor was dark except for the exit signs and the glow from skyline windows. I cut through the corridor to avoid the crowd lingering by the bar, heels soft on carpet, music thinning to a heartbeat behind me. I saw him before he saw me, leaning against the glass, city lights dressing him up like an idea I had worked hard to outgrow. You never liked these parties, he said when I got closer, voice low, familiar. I should have kept walking. Instead I let a laugh slip, small and traitorous. I like the dessert table, I said. He smiled at that old shorthand, at the piece of me that answered without thinking. We both watched the office doors, closed and quiet. He asked how I'd been. I answered in sentences that were too honest for someone who had promised her life to someone else. Can we talk? He asked, and when I hesitated, he added, not here. He pushed open the nearest conference room. Empty. Dark, except for the water's reflection from the river beyond the glass. It smelled like new carpet and lemon cleaner, a neutral stage with no witnesses. I told myself I was just stepping inside to be polite, to shut a door on the past with the past looking me in the eye. The door clicked behind us, a small sound that landed like a gavel. What do you do when a version of yourself you thought was dead sits up and asks for air? We stood too close. He said he was proud of me, he'd followed my campaigns, he quoted a line from a panel I barely remembered. He asked if I was happy, really happy, and the way he said really made honest feel like a dare. I started to tell him about Daniel, about the houseplants that keep dying and how he keeps buying new ones anyway, about Sunday pancakes and our running joke about the neighbor's dog. I meant to tether myself to that truth. And then Nathan brushed my wrist, just a passing touch, and it was as if a dozen doors I nailed shut came loose at once. I wish I could tell you I left. I wish I could tell you that I remembered the warm towels and the temple kiss and chose to be the woman my husband believes I am. I didn't. I stepped closer and he didn't step back. The city watched and said nothing. The door stayed closed. If you've ever stood in a room with your past and felt your present slip, if you've ever made a mistake you don't know how to carry, I want you to listen to this whole story before you judge me. Comment if you've ever felt that split in your chest, hit like if you want more of these true, messy, human moments, and subscribe if you want to see how I climb out of what I fell into tonight, because I promise, it gets harder before it gets honest. I woke to light that didn't belong to my bedroom, to a ceiling that didn't know my name. That's the first betrayal of morning when you've done something you can't explain. You have to orient yourself before you can even start lying to yourself. My dress was on the chair. My shoes were tidy at the foot of the bed, the way someone who knows me might place them. Nathan was in the doorway, coffee in one hand, contrition pretending to be a smile. "You hate hotel coffee," he said. My stomach clenched. I took the cup anyway because I didn't know how to say I hated myself more. I could hear my phone buzzing across the room, persistent, ordinary. A text from Daniel, made it home. "Lock up when you get back. Love you." I stared at the words until they blurred, until love you looked like a language I hadn't earned. I typed on my way, deleted it, typed just wrapping up and a winking emoji I instantly despised, deleted that too. I ended with going to crash at Emma's, too much wine, and even the lie tasted like old pennies. The shower water was too hot, the kind of punishment you pretend is cleansing. I watched a woman in the mirror try to look like she hadn't just put a hole in the life she built. My mother used to say, character is what you do when no one's looking, and I thought, foolishly, that no one had looked. The truth is, I'd watched, and that was enough. Nathan spoke through the steam like a ghost. He said he hadn't planned it. He said he'd been surprised to see me, that the city had been kind but lonely, that he'd thought of calling 100 times and never did. He said we were wrong together and right, all at once, that it was complicated, as if complicated were absolution. He asked if I was okay. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if he remembered the last time we tried to be in the same life, how we burned everything we touched because we both wanted to be first. I wanted to tell him I was married to someone who shows up and that showing up is love's most boring and most holy miracle. Instead I said, I need to go. The ride home was a slideshow of small guilt, the driver's eyes in the mirror, the leftover shimmer of party glitter on my wrist, the way Sunday light looks too clean for a dirty heart. I let myself in. The apartment met me with the smell of cinnamon Daniel had baked. He leaves notes in absurd places, so it shouldn't have surprised me when a post-it on a Tupperware read, "For tomorrow morning, apple muffins, less sugar, like you like." I pressed it to my chest and stood there, ridiculous, crying into a note. He called from the bedroom, voice thick with sleep. "Hey, babe." I froze and then walked in, like an actress entering the scene she'd ruined. He smiled the way husbands do when they're happy to see their wife at the door, simple, unguarded. He reached for me and I went, terrified that he would smell the truth, that the scent of lemon cleaner and guilt had attached itself to my skin. "I didn't want to wake you," he said, "thought you might sleep over at Emma's." "You okay?" I said yes, because the word is short and merciful. He asked about the party. I gave him light, harmless pieces, the kind that can't cut you if you drop them. For the rest of the day, I moved through our home as if it had a new gravity. The plants we keep rescuing. The chipped mug he refuses to throw away. The framed print that hangs a little crooked because he likes it that way. Every object was an accusation and an invitation. Remember what you said you would protect, remember what you didn't. Nathan texted once. Are you home? Can we talk? I didn't answer. He called. I let it ring. He sent an email with a subject line that was both banal and explosive, about last night. I closed my laptop. This is what a coward looks like, someone who postpones the truth and calls it finding the right moment. At dinner, Daniel told me a story about his mother arguing with her pharmacist and winning, because kindness isn't weakness when you add persistence. I laughed in the right places. He touched my knee under the table and said, "You're quiet." I said I was tired. He offered to do the dishes, and I let him, because everything felt like evidence. When he finished, he put music on low and pulled me into a slow dance, right there in our kitchen, tile cool under our feet. We haven't done this in a while, he said into my hair. I leaned my head on his shoulder and thought, if there's a God, he isn't watching. If he is, he's disappointed in his unreliable narrator. That night I lay awake next to the man I chose and listened to the seconds drag themselves into morning. I decided I would tell him, tomorrow, after coffee, when I could keep my voice from shaking, when I found words that didn't sound like a self-inflicted wound. I promised myself I'd make a call to HR too, to draw lines at work I should have drawn last night. I made a list in my head: tell the truth, accept the consequence, protect the man who didn't deserve the blast radius. Lists make me feel powerful. Sleep finally came like a mercy I hadn't earned. Morning would ask me if I meant it. The week that followed was a museum of almosts. I almost told Daniel on Monday, but his mother called in tears about a letter from her insurance company, and we spent the evening reading clauses out loud, decoding a language designed to exhaust people into giving up. Tuesday I almost told him after dinner, but he fell asleep on the couch, mouth open, a soft snore I've always found funny, and I couldn't bring myself to wake him just to drop a bomb. Wednesday I sat with my coffee cooling in my hands, courage rising like steam, and he walked in holding a small plant he'd picked up because it looked like it needed rescuing. I thought, not for the first time, that maybe I am the plant. At work, I avoided the 8th floor because that's where the partners live, and now so does my past. I took stairs instead of elevators. I changed my route to the kitchen. I learned to look at my phone when I sensed his footsteps. Adult hide-and-seek is just fear with a sensible blazer. On Thursday, he found me anyway. Elaine, Nathan said softly in the hallway, as if my name were a password we used to share. I kept walking, but he matched my pace. I'm not here to make trouble. Can we talk? I stopped because running makes predators chase, and because I am not prey. I am a woman who made a choice and now must make a better one. We work together now, I said. So here are the rules. We speak about work, only work. No history. No late-night meetings. No closed doors. He nodded, a small, sharp movement. I can do that. His eyes flickered to my ring. Are you okay? I thought of the hotel coffee and the post-it note and the dance in the kitchen and wanted to say, no, I am not okay, but I am trying to be someone I can live with. I said, I'm fine, because that's what women say when they're holding a dam together with two tired hands. That afternoon, my boss assigned me to a pitch that had been Nathan's in his previous firm, now our firm's big play. You two have history, client history, she said, smiling at the coincidence she didn't know was a weapon. You'll be perfect together. Perfect together is a phrase that hits differently when it used to be a prophecy and is now a threat. I told myself professionalism is a bridge you walk across no matter what's underneath. We scheduled a meeting for Friday, glass-walled conference room, mid-afternoon, plenty of witnesses circling outside like fish. Safe. Friday came dressed like a test. I wore a soft navy blouse Daniel had bought me last Christmas and a resolve I'd ironed twice. Nathan arrived late, apology in his eyes, memory in his half-smile. I opened the deck and started talking in bullet points and breathless confidence, the way I always do when I want to outrun the part of me that wants something it shouldn't. He listened. He asked smart questions. He told me the one line in my proposal that needed air. For 60 minutes, we were colleagues. I almost let relief make a home in my chest. Great work, he said when we wrapped, lingering on great the way he used to when he wanted to start a fight or a fire. I meant what I said last week. I didn't plan any of this. But seeing you, he stopped. His eyes softened into the past. I'm not going to try to blow up your life. I nodded, because what else do you do with someone offering you a kindness you don't know how to trust? He added, quieter, you weren't happy, not fully. I could see it. Anger rose like heat. What you saw was a woman making space for a good man in a hard life, I said. Not a gap you're invited to fill. He put up his hands, surrender without surrender. Understood. We walked out into the hum of Friday, colleagues again, or something like it. That night, my resolve stopped being an idea and started being a plan. I set the table while Daniel stirred the sauce. I watched the muscles in his forearm move, the same arm that carried heavy boxes down 2 flights when the elevator broke, the same arm that has never reached for me in anger. Can we talk? I said, and the words came out steady, like a bridge I trusted to hold. He turned off the burner, wiped his hands, leaned back against the counter with the openness of a man who doesn't yet know a wave is coming. Of course, he said. I told him I loved him first, because it was true and because I didn't want truth to drown in what came next. I told him I had been careless with both of us, that I had stepped into a room I should have refused, that a part of me had been sleepwalking and had woken up too late. I told him I had not been myself and I had been exactly myself, and that those 2 facts terrified me. I did not say Nathan's name. I said someone. I said a mistake. I said one night. I watched my husband's face learn a new language in real time. He didn't yell. He didn't throw the plate he'd been drying, though I half expected it just to match the mess inside my chest. He sat down at the table and put his hands flat on the wood, as if bracing for an earthquake he would try to ride out. Thank you for telling me, he said finally, voice raw in a way I'd never heard. I'm glad you told me before I heard it from someone else. My stomach dropped through the floor. What do you mean? I asked, and the tremor in my voice betrayed me. He swallowed. He looked so tired then, as if he'd been carrying something heavy for days. Elaine, he said carefully, we have cameras in the lobby at work. Emma's fiancé does security contracts, remember? He mentioned he saw you leave the party, not alone. His eyes lifted to mine, apology and accusation fighting for space. I asked him not to tell me more. I waited. I hoped it wasn't what it looked like. I hoped he'd say it before I had to ask. I felt the room tilt. The room, our kitchen, our routines, our kindnesses, all of it off balance. He added, almost a whisper, I love you. That didn't change between Friday and now. But something did. I reached for his hand and he let me, but the distance between our palms felt like a field I might never cross again. We sat there in a silence that wasn't empty, a silence working the problem like an engine running hot. Outside, someone laughed in the hallway, that bright sound people make when they don't know your life is breaking. I'll sleep in the guest room, I said, the first tangible consequence I could offer. He nodded once, a king granting a request he didn't want. We'll figure this out, he said, not as a promise, but as a plan 2 decent people could try to make. I lay in the small room and stared at the ceiling. I thought of the camera in the lobby, of a grainy timeline that didn't show the 1,000 tiny excuses I'd made to stand where I stood. I thought of the comment sections of stories like mine, all fire and certainty. I thought, tomorrow, I will be honest at work too. And then, because hope is stubborn, I thought, maybe we are not done. Morning came with a list. I made coffee for Daniel and left it by his spot at the table, not as penance, just as a habit I wanted to remember how to keep. I told him I'd call my therapist, that I'd already emailed HR to request a meeting about boundaries with a new partner, no names, just facts. He nodded, appreciating process the way some people appreciate art. He said he'd take a few days at his sister's, space for both of us to breathe without performing bravery. He packed quietly, pausing once to touch the magnet on our fridge from the beach trip where we'd gotten sunburned and happy in the same day. I don't know where this ends, he said at the door, but I know I don't want to become someone I don't recognize while we decide. I nodded because there are no speeches for that. At work, I stepped into HR with the posture of a person who finally understands gravity. I told the truth, or the work-appropriate version of it, that I had a history with a new partner, that I had already put up boundaries, that I wanted them formalized, no shared projects, no travel together, no meetings alone. I didn't ask to ruin a man to save myself. I asked for the structure that helps people be better than their impulses. The HR director, a woman with kind eyes and a file full of other people's mistakes, thanked me for being proactive. She would talk to leadership. She would ensure our professional lives had guardrails. As I left, relief moved through me, not the clean relief of being good, but the steadier relief of doing something good after doing something wrong. Nathan found me near the elevators, of course he did. I heard, he said, regret and defensiveness braided together. You're protecting your marriage. I respect that. I looked at him and saw, for the first time in a long time, not a story about fate, but a man with his own set of selfishness and soft spots, same as me. I'm protecting myself too, I said. The part of me that still wants the easy thrill more than the hard good. He nodded, and for once, there was nothing left to say. That evening, the apartment was quieter than it had ever been. I watered the resilient plant that was trying its best in our crooked window and let the silence settle without arguing with it. I called Daniel. We didn't talk logistics, not first. We talked about the stupid commercial that makes us both cry, about the neighbor's dog who keeps escaping, about the way the weather can feel like a mood. Then I told him this, that I would go to therapy, that I would make amends without asking him to hurry his forgiveness, that I would move at his pace, not mine. I told him I wanted to earn the right to hold his hand in our kitchen again, but that if we didn't get there, I would still honor what we built by telling the truth about what broke it. He was quiet a long time. I don't want to punish you just to make myself feel better, he said finally. But I also don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I need time. I need to be angry without making a home in it. I told him I understood, not because it's what you say, but because anger is a house with windows that don't open. You suffocate if you stay too long. We agreed to meet with a counselor, to see what could be saved and what needed to be blessed and let go. I wish I could give you a clean ending. I wish I could tell you we patched the hole with better words and stronger habits and now we dance in the kitchen every Friday, laughing at the pasta sauce. The truth is, we met with the counselor and we cried and we said unflattering things out loud, and then we said beautiful things we'd forgotten to say for months. The truth is, some nights we sleep back to back on the same bed, breathing like people who know the other is there and isn't sure what to do with that gift yet. The truth is, I am learning to be someone I trust, a day at a time, even when the day gives me nothing but the chance to try again. The twist, if you need one, is smaller than fireworks and bigger than I knew. I did not lose my marriage that week, but I did lose the version of myself who thought she could outrun consequences. I buried her quietly and wrote her a kind epitaph. She wanted to be loved and sometimes took the shortcut. She learned to take the long way home. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to the messy middle, not just the headline. If you've stood where I stood, between a good life and a bad decision, tell me how you found your way back, or where you chose to go instead. Comment with the moment you knew you had to tell the truth. Hit like if you believe stories like this can help somebody choose differently, and subscribe if you want to follow the next part of this, whether it's a rebuilding, a goodbye, or something in between. I promise I'll tell you the truth the whole way, even when it shakes. Because stories don't fix us. But they can hold a small door open while we try to walk through.